Hi everyone. This is now a little bit earlier than originally planned. I hope that works for all of you guys. The session before was a little bit shorter, so we used the opportunity to say, hey, it's a beautiful day outside, and actually it's the last session, so why not pull this earlier? And additionally, I'm actually promising that it's late on Friday, so I'll quicken that up a bit. So what I'm going to do is do a little bit of an recap in means of the content supply chain idea, and then really pick some. It shouldn't be like a full demo. Obviously, we're not having the time, but trying to be a little bit interactive. So I think, Isabel, we can accept like input from people that are probably online as well. Okay. So for those of you, of course, who are here, the online people as well, if you have questions, let's make this a little bit of an interactive thingy, because I'll try to like cover the whole, like create some examples there, working with Illustrator and CELUM Drive, then so to say using obviously Workrooms to push a project through, talking a little bit about, let's say, my favorite robots in Workrooms there, then the classic, hey, okay, completely unrelated, more or less, upload and ingest stuff into Content Hub, and then, of course, again, probably go back to Workrooms and ask some feedback on stuff, get some feedback on stuff, and then a little bit of like just a reminder for probably most of you, but how an let's say integration into other applications could work, and then just as an example capability, the set focal point capability as a reminder what we can do there. But again, it should be really quick and really just picking some steps out of this as we call it, content supply chain idea that starts with create, covers manage, and goes into root. All our capabilities, as a little reminder, are actually oriented, so to say, around those three main pillars. So the 3 and 6, so to say, three main segments or domains and 6 capabilities of our cloud platform. And we'll touch base with a few of those. And then, of course, keep in mind, everything we do normally multi-channel. So the 6 elements that comprise our cloud platform, which 5 are distinctive capability segments, and the 6th is integrations in our marketplace. In the last like 2 days, and even more so if we count in the user group meetings on Wednesday, I got a lot of positive feedback around our marketplace idea. And just as a little side note to our ecosystem, but also to customers, the marketplace is an idea that will be coming ever stronger the more we evolve. So I'm super happy to have like partners here, like you guys from Bricks, that actually already were the vanguard of this idea. So of course, just creating an idea is one thing. If you don't have partners, for example, that jump on that bandwagon, doesn't really make sense. The guys from Bricks, just as one example, built a lot of extensions and integrations, and we have other partners that built a couple of integrations now that are also part of the marketplace. So frankly, I think, and looking here at Transa, you guys are also a big fan of this idea that in the future probably software should exactly only work like that. So instead of bending the core product in one or the other direction, it should be that actual individual capabilities that are of interest to certain customers actually can be picked off a select list and not cramping the software up for others. And I think that's the one solution how our software can be not only cool in their first like 2-3 years, but stay cool for 20 years. So that's a huge thing on that. So now enough PowerPointy stuff. Let's immediately now jump in our world. Which PowerPoint still hijacking my screen. So, bye-bye PowerPoint. There we go. Whew, good. So, that's the new dashboard, or kind of newish dashboard of Workrooms. Again, the CELUM applications are ordered here on the left side, and within the application, so to say, if I switch back to the content domain, again, for demo reasons, for our partners, you see here, you can easily switch between multiple demo/productive systems, like I have to do, so to say. And then within content, for example, this is the CELUM content dashboard, and the content explorer capability is the next one. So I'm not going now through full demo mode, so I'm not explaining in detail what you guys are seeing here. It's pretty self-explanatory. Anyway, if I click on Explore and Manage, I dive into, so to say, the content hub in itself. And our demo system is set up a little bit like that. So the folders you see here on the side are actually a filter in itself. And in addition to that filtering capabilities, of course, there's search, and there are then the filter widgets on top. So I could now filter, I don't know, for images that are actually, I don't know, landscape. And of course, then after that, it would exclude every content piece that is not an image and not landscape. So I'm sorry. Now let's kick it off with working, let's say, with Illustrator from the very beginning, so to say. Now I'm going back to Workroom and say, okay, well, I have not a true clue now what I want to do. Let's just create what we call a default workroom. And I say now, okay, this is my CELUM folder, or CELUM pop. Yeah, let's call it folder update. Anyway. Now, and this is how Workrooms works, everything should be like super easy, and it actually is. And before I, so to say, invite people here, I actually want to show you the task board and robots capabilities. So what you see here is, again, we have to assume that people working with Workrooms at least know what a task list is, because theoretically I could say, well, yep, I'm actually super happy with one list, and that's it. I can create a board out of it, which is like, at the moment it gets 2 lists, it's a board. But the idea of this kind of Kanbanized work management is actually, it's just a couple of lists next to each other where stuff can actually go back and forth between lists. And it's called back and forth for a reason. What CELUM added here is a workflow capability that allows you to really control that when something goes back and forth. So let's say I will create tasks that are well suited for the new list. Then I'll say, okay, stuff that the person who has to execute them has questions, stuff that is in progress, stuff that is finished, and because we are in marketing and creative work, stuff that is just crap. Because that's what I usually do when I work as a designer. Now I can give stuff colors, obviously, that's important now, or when looking at the board, because it gives stuff more, let's say, visual differentiation, but also when tasks are then later propagated, this color of their list actually stays with them. So like, okay, in progress is blue, questions is also red, because that's kind of or orange, and you can stay gray. So what I can now do is that for each individual list, I can set a due date. When this due date comes near, there's a lot of alarms and, hey, you have to do something, and I can immediately assign task list owners. The ownership of a task list is also a special CELUM kind of thingy compared to, let's say, tools like Trello or Meistertask. Because we can, by that kind of, we add a lightweight permission system to it. Again, still the idea is that what I'm doing here, normally nobody does, because stuff is saved as a template and then just reused. Of course, I'm now like doing everything manually, because the cool thing here, for example, is if somebody throws a task into questions, I'm the creator of the workroom. I want to be the one that gets this automatically assigned. So later on, when people are doing stuff in here and they move stuff into questions, I will get this automatically assigned. And of course, if it goes back to, let's say, once it's finished, I'm saying, hey, listen, when something is being moved here, it's actually unassigned for all, so that it doesn't stay with people and they see it in their task list still with, hey, it's done, but it's still on the list. I don't care about that. In my overview list, I don't want to see it anymore. So this is what normally, so to say, happened when it's finished. And when it's crap, so to say, then yeah, I could assign it to somebody else to actually clean that up. So this is now interesting because this is how typical Kanban tools work, and we actually also did something that only very few of those Kanban tools can do. It's actually giving stuff a flow, and this is why we call that now, when it has workflows activated, a flow board, not only a task board. Now it's a flow board, and the idea really is, okay, stuff can propagate from new to, well, obviously, so to say, it should go to questions, or it should be able to go to questions and to in progress, or people could more or less say that's crap. Once it's in questions, it could later on then move on to in progress or crap, and if it's in progress, it can go to finished or crap. And what I've built here now with just like, I don't know, 8 clicks is a kind of a very complex workflow, because I can now only propagate stuff from new to questions, from questions to in progress, from in progress to finished, and once it's in finished, it stays there. So that's it. And I could go back now to robots and could say, okay, for example, there is a due date capability. So when stuff is being moved in progress, and that's happening with tasks a lot, right? It's like, hey, the due date should go 7 days into the future. That's my favorite thing automatically, but I could also say 2 days, meaning whenever something is then moved into in progress, I know what's happening in this tool here, and I want to say, hey, you've got 2 days then from that moment on. So that's, let's say, the basics. Normally I'm using my poor colleague Georg as the guinea pig in such scenarios, so he'll get a lot of notifications later. So I'm now creating that workroom, that project, if you want to say so, and now there's a lot of stuff happening. We have customers using it very effectively as a first selection tool for photoshoots. So for photo shooting, they create a workroom, the photographer does what I will be doing in a second, subscribes to that workroom, and then just uploads the stuff into a certain local folder, and the folder automatically synchronizes with the workroom. And then people immediately can start making first decisions, so there would be probably not new and questions, it would be, well, inbox, the next would be okay for pre-select, some amazing shots immediately go to retouching, and of course the appropriate people will get notifications and can start working immediately, and that's the cool thing. So if it goes to like into retouch or ready for retouching, the guys, so to say, that are responsible for retouching, they are here auto-assigned, they get an email notification and can immediately start retouching images, while actually the photographer is still in the middle of his shoot. So that's really like talking time to market and reducing a time span. And the cool thing, of course, is also the retouching guy would actually subscribe, and the files would one after the other automatically being, so to say, synchronized to his or her local machine. Yes, that's a lot of data that's being moved back and forth, specifically when we're talking about raw images being used. And we are currently working on a little update here where you can be a little bit more selective what stuff you want to sync exactly, and to up to what file size and other stuff. But the syncing really, that makes a difference here, because there are certain people who definitely don't want to sync, because you can still website very, very easily up and download stuff, and hey, this is nice, this image, I want to download it and upload it as a new version. That's also completely without any sync tool possible. But in addition, of course, I would like to synchronize this specific workrooms. And then I have files, and what I'm now doing is that I'm just uploading, so to say, my 2 masterclass files. So the one is the PowerPoint slide deck you've seen a second ago, and the second one is actually an Illustrator file that so to say, I want to actually work on. So long story short, what now happens is that here somebody could now say, okay, hey, the change the AI file, whatever that now means, and I can now easily add this file. I could have done it the other way around as well. I could just have said, okay, here in files, just right-click on here and say create the task, and just select the list. Okay, that's right. You should start at Passaustrasse. So here's now my task, and now of course comes the visual annotation capability into place. And again, this works for AI files, this works for videos, this works for whatever you want. You can easily set a marker and say, okay, well, yeah, change logo, and of course now add ping Georg by that in addition. So I'm asking him for a question. He's not the guy responsible for the task, but I'm asking him a question. And now, of course, stuff, I could now say, I have questions, or let's add this to in progress. And now the robot has automatically set the due date to September 5th, and I'm now in a multitude of roles. If I'm now looking back, so to say, at that task, so where do we have it? There we have it. It should be actually September 5th. It should be actually showing it here on my tasks, but it doesn't. Why? Anyway, so okay, it's not my task. That's probably the problem. Okay, it is, to me, I did actually miss that the first time that I'm adding it to my tasks, and now obviously, yes, it is here. So it ordered this and says, okay, this is due next week, and immediately here you see the color code here plays a lot of role. Additional reddish here means that it's overdue, so I keep them as an example, and actually I don't have any idea what I should do there. So now I have synced that one file. So what happens now is that in my presentation here, I have the folder update, and here are the two files now synced back. So I uploaded them from my local disk and synced them back. And what I can now do is opening Adobe Illustrator and now start working on it. Now I'm the graphics guy that actually works with that. So this is agnostic, so to say. So in comparison, so to say, to what we do with the guys from CI Hub, where you have an integration, you can open stuff, so to say, via the panel. This is really an agnostic thing. So this can be used for 3D files, for whatever, where we don't have any other integration as well. And then, of course, I would make changes here, and now working highly professional here and flipping that away and just removing the logo as well. And say, okay, save. I've done an amazing job, and that's it. Closing it, and now in the background, so to say, that file is going to be updated, and I can say, yep, okay, actually, because I'm done. So I have this quick capability here, setting it to finished. It's off my back in a second, the update. So the CELUM sync service is currently set to a 10-minute cycle automatically, or like a manual sync at any time. So in a few seconds, that file will be updated, and everyone involved will get pinged and blah, blah, blah. So the process runs through. And at the end of the day, and this is obviously important for people that work with Content Hub as well, is that stuff can super easily be exported. If the whole process would start from Content Hub, I don't have to click that, because then it's an auto link back to the file. But of course, even if I've started the process standalone in Workrooms, I can still push it, so to say, back, so to say, to Workroom, to Content Hub, either as a new asset, completely new asset, or as a new version of an asset. So if I would click as new version, it would open Content Hub, and I could say, okay, that's actually the new version of the Scott CELUM presentation, which of course makes no sense, but that's what would happen now. So if I would then later go back to Content Hub, I would have updated that automatically as a new version. I cannot replace in my current role to actually not being like able to destroy something. So there we have it. Immediately it's under my latest file. So that's also cool that, so to say, the recent capability normally shows then this latest file. And obviously, wow, I did something great, but obviously wrong. So I can easily revert back to the original version. This is where obviously versioning in Content Hub makes a lot of sense. So unfortunately, my piece of art now goes back into the abyss. So this is again why we think. So in general, what I did here is I actually played not only 3 people, but probably also 3 people from 3 different organizations. So there was probably the company that owns, so to say, the brand here, says, okay, hey, listen, we need something new. That could now go out to the persons actually involved in, being the design. That could be in-house, which in more and more cases is the case, but of course it could be also at an agency. And actually, because there was 2 languages involved, it could be another agency responsible for another language or market. So the basic idea why Workrooms works so isolated is that I can really have it as a sandbox where I'm the company, 2 or 3 even, let's say, service providers. We can work together and nobody touches, so to say, my Content Hub. And I don't have always this like, yeah, I would like to send you the file back, but I have no permissions, which again is by purpose that way. I have no permissions in this CELUM product of yours, aka meaning Content Hub. Can you please, I'm sending it to you by email, okay? And that's the idea what Workrooms should cover. As long as anything is work in progress, it runs in Workrooms, and that's pretty much it. And if it's final, it moves back to Content Hub, either replacing an existing version or becoming something new. And of course, as said, I can also start the whole process the other way around from Content Hub. Just as a reminder, the synchronization capabilities that you've seen a second ago in Workrooms are obviously also available in Content Hub. So this is a synced folder, and as the term here is implying, this is currently also our batch uploading capability, so to say, with Drive, 1 click to sync with one of those, and it is using it as a synchronization basis. Of course, fully rights permissioned or access rights permissioned, permission controlled. So if, of course, you don't have the right to upload stuff into a folder, you can still download stuff, but you will not be able to write back. The system will notify you, obviously, about this shortcoming. But for example, we have customers now that use the Drive capability as a kind of a small mini sales enablement tool. So they offer people Drive that are in sales. They are syncing, I don't know, certain locations with the most recent sales presentations. They get like, I don't know, the last 50, let's say, PowerPoint presentations and PDF docs downsynced, but this is only a downsync. If those people are actually, I don't know, making changes and, crapping up those presentations, there's no writing them back into the central Content Hub, because that's not the idea. Central marketing, central product management is actually building those presentations, and the salespeople should just use them as the blueprint. But with this system, they can always be sure to have the latest version that's available whenever they are connected to the internet. So I did the upload stuff via Drive, via Workrooms. Of course, I can upload stuff also just as well via drag and drop into Content Hub directly. That is, so to say, the second option. And again, since we are with switching to Nova UI, we actually have now this little snack bar down here that actually guides you through. So I can do something else. I can go somewhere else. The snack bar stays with me until I've dismissing it. I could say now, okay, finish it, or I can now start managing the metadata of those 2 files. And I see here now, again, this is still the original version. I'm not yet worked on that AI file here. And I can now assign an asset type and call this is both marketing collateral. And this is where our asset type principle comes into the picture. And this is now our bulk asset editing capability, where I can now individually or for both add metadata. So if I now switch to the edit mode, I'm kind of adding metadata to this file or the other one. We'll talk about focal point in a second. Again, keep in mind we have our conditional fields. So if I click something, additional fields could come up. This is obviously something that we that happens a lot with digital rights management. And then, of course, we have elements. Also, this is conditional, so to say. So I see here and say, okay, yeah, this should be propagated to Frontify, to the media library in Frontify. And then, of course, I have AI capabilities. This is for demo reasons. Normally, users do not necessarily, so to say, make this decision because they don't care. So our 3 AI, so to say, services that we offer, it's Microsoft Azure Cognitive Services, it's Imaga, and it's the CELUM own protected AI capability that, again, does not exchange content of customers with anyone else. So that's what, so to say, is built in. And of course, then there's the extract text capability that we will be seeing in a second. So I've now not really did a lot of stuff to the metadata here and not doing a lot of meaningful stuff. So let me at least make this published. Oops. And the same goes here, making it do not touch, just to have 2 different things going on. So this state setting is the minimum quality requirements, so to say here. And now I have those 2, they get different bubbles down here. Both are considered to be new. One gets the immediate published. The second one gets this, okay, you need to do something with it later on, as it hasn't been, so to say, that much going on. So what I wanted to show you guys is, for example, it's the focal point capability. So our AI is able to automatically determine what are the interesting areas in an image. Meaning, if there are people in it, it can say, first of all, it can find out that there are people, which is for model releases quite interesting to say, hey, awesome that I have full usage rights from the photographer, but if there are people in it, something else should be happening. So I think we learned a lot about that yesterday. And of course, the second thing is that it would normally, again, the AI would, let's say, imply or guess where the interesting part of an image lies. So of course, in this case, actually, it's about the running shorts right here. So while the AI would probably go for the faces, let's say, let's go politically incorrect for the people's buns, yeah? Because this is where the Scott logo here actually is. So let's set the focal point here where the logo sits. And now, of course, if somebody is, or some other system is using this piece of content, automatically, obviously, it would focus on this area. That's pretty cool. And a second, like, pretty cool capability, which again makes sense for images, is of course the text extraction. So I'm not going too much into detail for text extraction, but that's another nice capability. Again, I can, for demo purposes, I can trigger it manually. In an average usage scenario, it would automatically, for example, for certain asset types, automatically trigger a text extraction. And the idea of a text extraction, of course, is kind of like we see it here, and it's actually in many cases it's like a little extra insurance in means of metadata. So if we have an interpretable piece of content, like a PDF, an AI, an APS, or whatsoever, we can full text index content, obviously. So we will extract the text by that means. But if it's a photo that, I don't know, if I would take here a photo, there would be this text over there. There would probably even outside the Strom, as it says on this big transformer building there. So if I would then activate text extraction, it would then really say, okay, Strom, do now, ask for forgiveness later, etc., etc. This is something I would probably not have thought at adding metadata, and the system would do this automatically. So let's take a look at the text extraction capability. I hope my internet didn't die. So there's another capability of AI you see here. So here we have activated, for example, the Imaga tool as well. And of course, this now is really exchanging this piece of content with external sources and does now a very generic, so to say, but kind of helpful AI search as well. And of course, here you see, yeah, the term sexy might to a certain extent apply to that image, and this is what a generic AI does. Yeah? But also a lot of the other stuff is actually helpful, but of course there are certain, like this, there's no swimsuit in here. Yeah? But again, for the AI, this is a swimsuit. Yeah? There are swimsuits that look exactly like that. For us as humans, it makes no sense. This is not a swimsuit scenario, yeah? Let's say. So long story short, but most of the other stuff is really working out. So that's pretty cool. Let's dive in a little bit here on the metadata side. We see here it automatically extracted metadata information as well. And what you see here, and this is the extracted text, it's actually trying its best, but it's still just AI. So this here, for us, easily recognizable as Scott, but for the AI, it's a really hard job to interpret that correctly. So this is like, because it's not simple OCR, that would not work at all in a Schmuckschrift like this one here. So at least it came along with Scott with just one T, and it completely messed up the, like, it's nearly 100 degrees in the wrong side, so it tried to read it from left to right. So now we can discuss about like how good AI in general is. But frankly, if I would later type in a search that said Scott and did nothing else, it would still find that because it has at least found here the first four letters. Again, this is an additional helper. It safeguards a little bit. So now about this setting focal point and etc. etc. Why do we do this setting focal point? It's about the integration. So what I'm having here, so to say, is the probably most stupid and simple integration that's thinkable, and that's our example with WordPress. I'm pretty sure most of you guys know WordPress, and if I'm adding here an element via the CELUM connector, I have three collections in my demo system that are related, so to say, to WordPress here, and I can now super simply and easily select an asset and then edit, and depending on what the template is actually allowing me to do, 2 clicks later the stuff is, so to say, being placed in here. And that's the most basic integration thinkable in a content tool, like in this case, very, very simple with WordPress and very generic with WordPress. Of course, if this would be an asset with the focal point selected and there would be not enough space, obviously, to show the whole image, then it would here automatically focus the asset, so to say, on the area that I manually set the focal point on. So that's a very, very, very simple but quite well working, so to say, integration capability there. So looking a little bit at the time and promising to really keep it short, yeah, let's switch from Frontalvortrag to like an interactive session, and do not limit your questions, if you have any, to just what you've seen here, but just in general, let's say, well, our whole bouquet of capabilities. And yeah, any questions? Any questions from the internet?
No, not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Okay, so I think I would say I can conclude it here. A very, very short and brief overview, obviously. You've seen a little bit our asset types, what they can do. We talked a little bit about the process stuff that actually, so to say, the Workrooms integration does bring along. Again, we have now a lot of customers that are using Workrooms standalone, which again is okay for us. We even have a CELUM, the so-called CELUM Pro plan, the free plan in general. So we are now really offering people to try out Workrooms for free. They can even, so to say, collaborate, and this is the idea with getting agencies on board so that the service providers, creative service providers, can really work with our brand customers, and that's for free. So you can use the free plan to be engaged there as well. Of course, with the pro plan, it's more interaction capable, but the users per se, once they have a CELUM account, can really completely participate there. And of course, the brand, so to say, would provide then their system. So go out, try and use it for free. For example, I'm not sure if you have seen it in my demo setup. So for example, again, I probably told you guys I'm a young father now, so with a 5 weeks old daughter, and we already did baby photos with a professional photographer, and she was really providing me. So it was a photo shoot, the product in this case was it's actually the baby. So long story short, I did it exactly that. I provided the photographer with the link, with the invite to Workrooms, and I'm obviously that's a very personal private use scenario, but it worked great. Yeah, I really tried it out because the photographer in this case was a friend of my wife's, and she's kind of young, but still not the most IT, let's say. So she asked me, how should I give you the photos, with sending you an USB stick by mail then or so? And oh wow, okay. You'll get an email. And I was like, okay, this is, let's see. So I created a workroom, I added her, and she did it. Actually, I think a day later, the stuff was already trickling in, and great. And exactly what now my wife and I'm in Linz, she's where we live 80 kilometers away. We were jointly selecting those photos that we are going to print on these little cards and send them to our parents and everyone who wants to have baby photos. So again, a very personal scenario, but it really worked out well. And this is, so to say, what Workrooms should do. It's a no rules environment where you can do whatever you want, and it has a very, very much controlled pipe then into Content Hub. And years ago at conferences, people were talking about final content versus work in progress, and Workrooms really is all about whenever it's work in progress. And it's not only at the beginning of the supply chain, so to say, where it is work in progress. It could also be as, hey, okay, we need new content. Yeah? When you work with guys like the Bildbeschaffer, you can offer them via Workrooms, let's say, hey, we have, these are examples what we think about. This is, whenever you collaborate, whenever you want to talk about stuff, it's cool. But even I had at the beginning this, I tried Trello a couple of times personally, and I wasn't really, it didn't really work for me. And actually I tried it again now, a couple of years later. And by now, I got it, how this works with the lists, the multiple ones, etc. But it needs, so to say, a change of thought, so to say, a little bit. And that's what's important, that technology sometimes is assuming a change in behavior to really fully allow benefiting from it. So, and this is especially when we go more into a, how should I put it, not experimental, but the more we are bold and try out new things, the more we need to invite people and people's openness to just for once think about changing their patterns a little bit. And that's definitely, so to say, what technology tries to do. If we take a look at Facebook, Facebook forces us all to a certain behavior. If I say now I would like to have it a little bit more work like Instagram, then of course the answer would be yeah, but then use Instagram if you want to have a different behavior. So long story short, I hope you enjoyed that little excursion. Do we have a question now? Yes.
Thanks. Michael, can you give us an outlook to the future of Workrooms, maybe within the next 1 or 2 years, concerning interoperability or nice functions or anything else?
Well, what Workrooms introduced are the robots, and this is the biggest thing, so to say, in means of what you will find the earliest, so to say, in the rest of our applications. So this if this then that, what the robots exactly are, that's going to be a core capability of everything we do at CELUM. So it's the API and the if this then that, because we found out that about 80% of all the let's say customizings that our customers normally run are actually if this then that capabilities. So they want to have if more than 20 files are being added in a certain collection, then blah 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 do something. And this is what the Workrooms introduced. So not exactly answering your question, but that is so to say where the story ends up. So on a midterm, so Workrooms are going to be whatever we do in the future. This is the core place where tasking and work stuff is going to be organized. So tasking is another core capability that will find its way into everything we do at CELUM. And the Workrooms are then just, let's say, a way to organize tasks. So that's why the Workrooms will be much more tightly integrated in everything we do. With the next planned Workrooms release, which is due to be in a couple of weeks actually, a massive increase or massive enhancement of the integration between, let's say, Content Hub and Workrooms will already take place. So that's something that people will immediately know. So when you start a Workroom from Content Hub, you can then immediately say what should happen when the Workroom is, so to say, complete right away from there, and not having to manage this, so to say, always from the Workroom side. And at the same time, you can start everything from the Workroom side and then tell him automatically. So this is a robot that's going to be added so that you can remote control Content Hub a little bit through a Workroom. That's also upcoming. Task list updates we're still working on. That's unfortunately a little bit more work than we thought. So the Microsoft Teams integration is something that we are having on our concept list very high up, and the concepts are nearly completed. I'm still not sure when we will be able to really, so to say, push for the execution. So that could take a little bit more time, because Microsoft is about to change again, so to say, how Microsoft Teams is interacting with their what's called panels or something with other applications. So we probably want to wait on that. There's a lot more file handling capabilities, like the conversion download for Workrooms that's planned, and there is more metadata capabilities, so to say, for Workrooms planned. Again, specifically when it's about the integration between Content Hub and Workrooms. So this is the next 3 to 4 months outlook for Workrooms.
Thank you. We saw the AI functionality when reading text. How much would you have to invest to make the AI completely perfect so that it can read Scott 2 T's, it can recognize text as upside down? How does that look for the future?
Once Elon Musk has achieved level 4 autonomy driving with his cars, and I think they're spending like 6-7 billion per year, we can talk. It's really that the thing is that AI can always be just an approximation. That's how it works, and it's pretty cool. It's better than nothing. Yeah. But to make it perfect, and that's really the problem here. So a 99 point something accuracy sounds great, but from a human perspective, that would mean that every 100th drive I take with my car would mean crash. Yeah? And even if it's every 1,000th doesn't really help me, it's still scary. And the same thing is here. So the AI is pretty good. So the Scott example is one of the worst ones, because it's a very dynamic font that actually is looking like other letters when it's turned upside down. So I cut the AI some slack there. And all, if you would consider 3 AI components that we offer together, so the text extraction, let's call it the generic Azure or Imaga, generic cloud, and then the CELUM standard AI capabilities that would say, is there people involved? How many people maybe? And what are the other ones that we can, okay, how many elements are in the foreground and stuff? So basic interpretation. And let's say Imaga, as we've seen, does a little bit more in this generic description. Is it sexy or not, or whatever? If you count all these 3 together and do nothing else, I would say you are at about 80%. So it's the Pareto principle. With 20% effort, you get 80% result. And this is why we strongly encourage all our customers that they activate, let's say, all those capabilities. 2 of them are included as a CELUM standard service anyway. So do this. It will definitely help you a lot. even though it's not perfect. So people need to step away from it and say, oh, okay, why does it say swimwear? This is wrong. Why does it say swimwear? Okay, it misinterpreted that, but all the other terms were actually right. Yeah, so this is a little bit also where we need to, and yes, if I search for swimwear and then this photo comes up, I could be a little bit disappointed. But if I search for swimwear and nothing comes up, in general, because nobody typed in swimwear, I would be even more unhappy.
Doesn't Imaga have a feedback channel so it can learn by your corrections?
If we have that activated, and of course we do understand, and this is why we have alternatives to Imaga, because we have customers that say, we don't want to give anything back. We don't want this system to learn with our data, which is understandable. If this is not deactivated, so people more or less, if Imaga is really used, then yes, it could learn. But we would now need to, let's say, to remove the tag here, the swimwear tag, so to say, and only then it knows that something went wrong, so then we could use the back channel. So currently we're not using the back channel at all, because we figured that this is now actually a bad example, because this could really be something where Imaga could be profiting. In many other cases, it's really the problem that, again, the class example makes sense. Yeah? If class uploads something and it says tractor, and from a class's perspective, this is not the tractor because they name it a little bit different and it's something else, then the back channel actually would confuse the AI. Because if class would say, tractor is not right, we call this schwerer Landschlepper, yeah, something, I don't know, and in German it would be not Traktor, but schwerer Landschlepper, then the AI wouldn't really profit from them. But in general, yes, Imaga has the back channel, but we're currently not supplying back to that.
For the text extraction, what service do you need there? You have built a known one, or you rely on a?
Yeah, it's our own text extraction service. So the basic is that, of course, there are open source libraries involved, but this is also something where we need to, or we are adding more machine learning capabilities, specifically when it's in different languages. Not really helping with the term Scott because this is an Eigenname. Yeah? But when it's getting more into natural language processing, where I really want to have a better understanding of full sentences or longer text passages, like true meaning true meaning OCR, I think there we need some extra. But for individual terms, excluding, so to say, Zwischenwörter like to or from or stuff like that, it already actually works quite well. No questions anymore? The internet also not asking? That's
not a technical one though, rather basic. So do I understand it correctly that people do not have to have an CELUM content hub to use the workrooms?
Exactly. Yeah. So there are people, again, obviously you can use just Content Hub. Out of our 6 offers, you could just go with, let's say, either the Content Hub capability and its integration world, for example, and the other 4, which are tightly knotted to Workrooms. So, but of course, from the overall offering perspective, it's 2 versus the other 4, and of course you can mix them. So it's either 2 of them or some of the other 4, or it's just from the other 4, like all of them. And this is what we also figured out, that that we have customers or like interestees that now are I think we added just more than 60 in the last week or so that really want to try out stuff, and they even use Workrooms without tasks sometimes. They just use it as a little Dropbox on speed. So it's kind of a Dropbox Pro competitor now all of a sudden. And that's okay for us as well. So that would be the CELUM Pro plan, for example. But yes, totally right. You can use Workrooms standalone, you can use Content Hub standalone, but of course the idea is to use them together as one part of our suite. Okay, well then, that leaves me only to say it was a pleasure hosting you here at CELUM Campus in those last 2 or nearly 3 days. I hope you enjoyed it. A big thank you again to everyone organizing it from our side. A big thank you also to the tech guys that made this very, very seamless. So a big thumbs up, and we can only recommend them if somebody of you wants to do events in Austria and I think Upper Austria and Zentralraum speziell. So thank you there. If you have any questions, give us feedback, reach out to our people. We're more than happy to improve, to get better. As said, this was Vorhang, der letzte Vorhang, so to say, the last curtain for CELUM in this way. We're about to come up with a complete new series of events that will be much more audience-oriented, much more, how we say that, much more zielgruppengerecht, yeah? So more target audiences focused, and by that hopefully a little bit more engaging, though shorter events. A lot of fun. We're gonna try out some stuff, and yeah. That's it. Have a safe trip home for all of you in the internet. I hope the bandwidth consumption was worth it. And yeah, all the best. Have fun. See you again soon.